Right. Hola amigos de la revista Lee Más, estamos hoy con Ashley, quien escribió el libro The Boyfriend Candidate y hoy nos va a platicar un poquito más acerca de eso. Ashley, thank you so much for being here today. How are you?
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so wonderful. How are you?
I'm so excited to talk to you today, so thank you so much for being here.
Pleasure.
So my biggest question is, you started writing thrillers.
Yeah.
How did you transition to romance novels and what was like the most surprising challenge of switching genres and how did you do it? How did that come up?
Oh my gosh. So, yes, I started out my career as a thriller writer, and I'll be totally honest, when the COVID pandemic hit, I had all of a sudden I had like a lot of people, a lot more time on my hands, because I wasn't going into work and
Yeah.
cooped up at home. And I also found myself, like a lot of people, really craving happy endings, really craving comedic reasons to laugh,
Yeah.
and romance. I think we saw a romance boom um, in 2020 that hasn't stopped since. So I was one of those people, and one of the things I did just for myself, I told myself I was just going to write like this book as a purely entertainment for myself and my sister who was locked in the house with me. So I started writing my very first romance novel, which is the first book in this series that the Boyfriend
Yeah.
Canon is part of. And I would write a chapter a day and read it to my little sister out loud at night, to check the jokes and see if I was actually funny. So it was like being
I
a
love
stand-up
that.
comedian. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was great and became something that we looked forward to. And after a few months, I had an entire book. Like I had kind of like tricked myself into writing a book for fun, and I sent it to my agent. She's like, "I actually think there's something here." So, long story short, we went out and got it published, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, I'm a romance writer. This is fabulous." And
Yeah.
I will say that like the process I use for thrillers and romance is very similar, because I
Oh,
think that,
really?
yeah, the thing that makes a good book, regardless of genre, is really propulsive pacing. So,
Yeah.
like when, kind of shorter chapters, a lot of action and hooks that's just making you want to turn that next page and read that next chapter. So I apply that from thrillers to romances, but I will say the hardest thing to do in romance is comedy. Like that difference between thrillers and romance, like, putting a dead body in a story, that's reliably going to shock
Yeah.
people. But jokes can be sometimes hard to translate, hard to like, oh, it works in your head, but is it going to make the other person laugh? So I find comedy writing like one of the hardest things an author can do.
Oh, what you do is so good. I love it.
Thank you.
I had the time of my life reading it.
Thank you.
Really, really, it's so funny. And all the characters have like this funniness in them. Like there's not a dull character, so congratulations on that.
Thank you so much. I workshopped it with my sister very hard.
So we asked our readers what they wanted to know about the book, and the most repeated question was actually, how is this story related to Fool Me Once?
Oh yeah. Okay. So Fool Me Once is book one, and I call it my Stone Sister series because we've got two sisters. Lee Stone, who is the main character in Fool Me Once, is the older sister. And she gets her own love story and her own happy ever after in Fool Me Once. And Alexis Stone, who is the star and main character in The Boyfriend Candidate, is her younger sister. And Lee and Alexis could not be more opposite.
Yeah.
Lee is like very brash, and where Alexis is very shy and reserved. And actually, in Fool Me Once kind of sets up the Boyfriend Candidate, because if readers are familiar, Alexis gets dumped like really aggressively by her boyfriend, who tells her she's too timid and meek in bed. And it's
Yeah.
like, oh my God, terrible, terrible insult. And so the Boyfriend Candidate starts with Alexis deciding she's going to prove to herself that he's wrong. and she's a lot more adventurous.
I absolutely loved it.
Thank
And
you.
Lee was such a force in Fool Me Once. And
Yes.
now we get to see Alexis like step onto her own spotlight,
Yep.
which she doesn't like, in the
Yeah, she
boyfriend
doesn't
candidate.
mind.
And at what point did you realize Alexis deserved her own story? Like, was there a specific moment while writing Fool Me Once that made you think Alexis needs her own book?
Yeah, it's so funny because as I was piling terrible things on Alexis and Fool Me Once, I was like, oh my gosh, I cannot keep doing this to this poor girl. She needs to get her happily ever after. It was like while I was
Yeah.
torturing Alexis so much. And in Fool Me Once, Alexis is this little sister that Lee really learns how to take better care of. That's one of her journeys through the book. And as an older sister myself, with a little sister, I really modeled a lot of Lee and Alexis's dynamics off me and my little sister. And I'm a
That's
little
so
more,
cute.
like extroverted, and my sister's like a little bit shyer. So Alexis has a lot of my little sister in her, which is why I think I wrote that character with more tenderness than I've written any other character in any of my books.
Amazing.
Yeah, and so I just knew that she was going to, like go through some obstacles and some trials and tribulations, but she was going to just like come out on top and get the ending that she deserved.
I love that. And how was like reading Alexis' character to your little sister? Like, did you ask for her opinions? How was the workshop between you two?
It was so great, and I will never stop laughing about it because it's both my little sister's favorite thing that this character is kind of modeled after her, and the most embarrassing thing ever. So, when I was doing book events around the release of the book, and she would come to some of them, I would say, and that girl sitting in the audience right there in row three, she is like the inspiration. And my little sister would be like, hi. And her face would turn bright red. So I think, she both loved it. And I would send her pages and say, like, does this sound like something you would think? Like,
I
does
love
this
that.
sound,
I
yeah.
love that, yeah.
Did I capture this right? And it was kind of fun because as an older sister, you always think you know best, right?
Yeah.
You're like, okay. So putting myself in Alexis's shoes gave me the opportunity to like put myself in my little sister's shoes and kind of push back against the older sister and be like, you do not, like, I got this. I don't know, it was kind of a learning experience for me, like stepping
Hmm.
outside myself.
That's so great. And I love that you have like this bond. And now
Yes.
that I need to reread the book again and Fool Me Once so I can think of you and your sister dynamic.
I love
That's
it.
so fun. I love it. And before you said like about the tropes and how it works differently, like in thriller and romance, and how in thriller
Mhm.
you put a dead body and like it's gonna work, you know?
Yeah.
Fake dating is one of the most beloved tropes in romance. Like I'm a sucker for that. Yet it's
Same.
completely ridiculous in real life. So how do you translate it like your tropes in thriller to romance, and how what is your secret to making it feel like believable and high stake in fiction?
Yeah, that is such a great question. And I agree with you on like every count. I love fake dating. Like I love the way that that trope just creates so much natural tension. It's just so good. And like you said, where do you see fake dating happening in the real world, right? I
Yeah.
would say, like, I really thought about that. And it occurred to me that the closest in real life that you'll get to that is sometimes with celebrity relationships,
Yeah, like
where two,
ones.
yeah,
Mhm.
where two celebrities will date. And then later on, it comes out that, oh, they were just doing it for their image or for the paparazzi or something like that. So I thought, oh, that also kind of happens in politics where sometimes things just like people put on a show, right?
Yeah.
So I figured the most realistic version of fake dating I could get is maybe the setup between Alexis and Logan, where these pictures emerge of them scantily clad, about to, do whatever, and they're scandalous to both of their jobs unless they pretend to be in a relationship and it kind of smooths it over. But then people are going to have a lot more expectations of seeing them around and, getting to know
Yeah.
Alexis. So I figured that was about as close as I could get to making it feel real.
I love that. That's so well thought because, like, again, like you said, there's not like a real scenario where we see like fake dating. I love To All the Boys I loved before.
Yes.
And it's so good, but like, you're not gonna fake date in like high school, you know? Like, that's not a believable PR stunt.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I
that's,
wish I had fake dated people in high school. That would have made my high school way more fun.
I know, right? Every time I reread the books or watch the movie, I'm like, am I too old to do this?
Yes.
Like,
I know.
24, it's still a time where I can have a fake romance just,
Yes.
for the thrill of it.
Just for the thrill of it. Yeah. We
Yeah,
should fake date more, is what we're
yeah,
both saying to
absolutely.
people.
I completely agree with that.
Love it.
And I also wanted to talk about like one of the things that makes the boyfriend candidate so refreshing for me is seeing that Alexis doesn't have all figured out from the start. You know, we're like used to seeing these narratives where it's like, yeah, everything is perfectly planned from here to here, and
Yep.
like, how are you gonna get there? And Lee's kind of messy. She was a party girl, and Alexis is kind of messy in her own way. So, when you first started developing Alexis' story, what were the biggest troubles you had in making her journey feel both satisfying but
Mhm.
also real?
Yeah, I love that question so much. And I love that you use the word messy because that's the word that I use too.
Great.
I love messy women. I'm a proud messy woman. All my friends are proud of messy. And I just think messy means exactly what you said, that, you acknowledge you don't have it all figured out yet. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes and then you're going to learn from them and whatever. Um, I like in developing Alexis, I knew that, like you said, she was going to be messy in her own way, but a very different kind of mess than her older sister, Lee. And I think one of the things that romance novels do so beautifully and why people love them is, of course, we all want to be on that journey with two characters falling in love. Like, that's fabulous. But romance novels dive deep into character study. They really, really kind of dig deep into why human beings are the way that we are. It's like this beautiful opportunity to get really deep inside a character's head. And I loved doing that with Alexis and exploring her journey to figure out her hangups and why she's a little bit messy and why she feels so shy and like she doesn't deserve love. There are a lot of things that she's struggling with at the beginning of the book. And I think it's really realistic, more realistic, to take a character like that and have them get to a place where they've taken a big leap forward, but they're by no means perfect by the
Yeah.
end of the day. And I think there are a lot of books and a lot of just narratives out there where a shy person steps out of their comfort zone and they learn, like, oh, if you just become a very different person, like brave and extroverted, then your
Yeah.
life will be fine. But I was determined for Alexis to try that and figure out that that's actually not for her. And like, you can stay true to yourself and resist certain things, that directions people want to pull you in. And like, I don't know, that just felt really important to have Alexis learn to stand up for herself, really.
That's one of the things that I love the most about the book. Like, we see her grow throughout the book
Yeah.
and have like her whole character arc, but she doesn't lose her essence. Like, she's still her. She's not becoming Lee. I mean, now she speaks to the public and goes out with Logan and does this thing that are not like her from the beginning, but
Yeah.
she's still there and she's still this girl who loves to talk in bed at 9 p.m. and read a novel, you know? So
Yes.
I love that because you, as you said, we have these narratives where it's like, oh, you can be better. You just have to like completely change yourself, no? Or social
Yep.
media that tell us like the 2025 guide to glow up is like completely transform yourself.
Yes.
And I feel like so related to Alexis because it's like I want to be, yeah, the best version of me, but I want to still be me. Like I want to see myself in the mirror and in my actions and feel like I'm still there.
That is so beautifully put. Like, I want to just be the best version of me. Yes, that
Yeah.
is the journey that she's on. But in order to get there, you have to actually believe that you are worth, staying true to. And that's a journey that like Alexis has to kind of fall in love with herself as well as Logan over the course of
Yeah.
the
Uh-huh.
book.
And
So,
I also love that she falls in love with her friends. Like she
yes.
has friends from the beginning, but these are like the two old ladies from the
Yeah.
library and everything. But
Yeah.
she makes such a progress in like relating to people her age and putting herself out there without being like a different person. So
Right.
was that important to you, like writing the friendships and like evolving the character throughout her relationship with other women?
Yes. Oh, so important to me. I think that's probably at the heart, no matter what kind of book I'm writing, what genre, strong relationships between women are always going to be like one of the hearts of my books. Just because for me, it's life-saving. It's like a saving grace, strong relationships with other women. And I also am a person who believes that um, really, sorry if you can hear my cat.
That's
But
okay.
yeah, like Alexis, I have an old grumpy cat that I take care of. Um, and I'm tossing a sock at him. Anyway, yeah, so I'm someone who believes that the best, strongest form of love, like falling in love with another person, you can't do that unless you're fully in love with yourself. If
Yes.
you have this like in love with your life, if you have the more strength essentially that you have in the rest of your life, I think the more ready you are for an actual healthy romantic relationship. So it was important to me that this journey Alexis is going on in this book is not just about Logan and falling in love with this man who seems like her opposite, but it was deepening her relationship with her sister, expanding her world and making more friends, like becoming politically engaged and then deciding, maybe some of that wasn't for her, but just
Yeah.
like this whole I wanted her entire world to expand in this book and not just have it be love, a romantic love.
Yeah, I feel like the romance novels that I enjoy the most are the ones that are not like just about the couple, but romance in general, like how it makes you change as a person, how the relationship makes you evolve, how it makes you more engaged, as you said. And talking about the politics views and like her
Yeah.
engagement, I love that the boyfriend candidate touches the book bans in the US.
Yes.
It's like a real and very pressing issue, which I found awful. So,
Mhm.
what made you wanted to incorporate this theme in Alex's story? And as someone who writes books, how are you feeling about that? And what are your thoughts on the kinds of book that tend to get challenged the most?
Yeah, no, I think it will come as no surprise to anyone that who's like encountered or read the book. But I find book bans to be like absolutely abysmal, such a threat to, democracy and freedom of speech and all of these tenets that, we're supposed to hold dear in this country. And so to me, it was an easy decision. Alexis is a librarian. What are
Yeah.
librarians like facing? What are the main issues librarians are facing? Well, I know that one from my librarian friends, and that is huge budget cuts and like being like libraries being gutted and also book bans. And so I knew always that I was going to um, touch on that and have Alexis become kind of a lightning rod or a central figure standing up for things that really mattered, not to Logan, or it does matter to him, but things that mattered to her, you know? So I also happen to think that the hottest, swooniest man in the world isn't a man who's like isn't simply a man who's like gorgeous, beautiful, smart, whatever, funny, but it's a man who believes that his woman is 100% equal, and he has respect for her in the fullness of her humanity, and he's going to put his money where his mouth is, and like show up and do that. So I think in these times, trying times with book bans and everything, that to me, I was like, there's there's Logan is like the ideal man to me because
Yeah.
he's so willing to like show his respect for women and for Alexis in particular. So between him doing that and Alexis like coming into her own and standing up for her friends, her career, there's just like a lot of it's also really fun to write politics and political engagement because I that's what I did in my job before becoming a
Oh,
full-time
okay.
writer.
Yeah.
Yep, I worked for an organization where I got a peek behind the curtains of politics. Politics in Texas, which you can imagine is like a
Yeah.
whole different beast. And I saw so many big characters and so much zaniness that I was like, there is so much absurdist comedy here in the political world, and I
Yeah.
think I want to write about it. So a lot of the comedy in The Boyfriend Candidate comes from just the absurdity of politics. And that
Oh,
I did not have to fictionalize. That's like real.
that's amazing. And
Yeah.
how, like, when you were at your past job and seeing
Yeah.
this, did you take notes? Like, did it ever occur to you that you were gonna end up writing about this?
You know, I was still at that job when I started writing Fool Me Once, the first
Okay.
book in this series. So I was very blatantly like, I didn't ever use like exact events the way they happened. And obviously, like, no one's real names. But everything I was seeing was very inspirational. So I started, it was like this endless well of inspiration I could draw
Yeah.
on. And so I started writing that book, and I thought, well, I'll never publish this book, so I don't have to worry about what my, colleagues will say. And then I did, and I was like, oh my gosh, what are they going to say? And they loved it. Thank God.
Well,
Like,
that's
yeah, everyone
amazing.
was
Of
like,
course you're gonna
oh.
love it. It's so
Yeah.
good.
Well, when you work in politics, a lot of times your job is very tireless and
Yeah.
thankless. And so I think it was a nice boost to see it all like satirized and skewered, you know, in the book.
Yeah, that would make my day. Like reading a book about my coworkers, like just the comedic parts and
The
just the
comedic parts.
absurdity of it. I would absolutely love that.
Yep.
Amazing. And lastly, I wanted to ask, you have a new book coming out March 25.
Yep.
Can you teach us a little bit about what is it gonna be about, and what the readers can expect about this book will bury me?
Yeah, thank you. I know, right around the corner.
Yeah,
So
it's like 2 weeks from now, or less
I
than
know. Ah! This book will bury me is my latest thriller. So very different vibes from
yeah.
The Boyfriend Candidate. And it's about a young woman named Jane Sharp who, after the unexpected passing of her father, she, in her grief, becomes like obsessed and sucked into the world of armchair detectives, amateur sleuths, people who are solving cases for strangers. And so she has a lot of unanswered questions about her dad. So it's really cathartic to find this online community of people who are like answering questions in other cases where people have died. But she gets sucked in a little too deep and
Mm,
becomes friends with this group of sleuths who, when they encounter like this huge, highly publicized kind of crime of the century, they decide they're going to be the ones to solve it. And that case has more twists and turns than they ever could have imagined. And it takes them to really daring and dangerous places. And so that case in the book is loosely based on the University of Idaho murders that occurred here in the States, in Idaho. And so just thinking about why that case became such a like national and then global phenomenon
yeah.
and everything that it brought up. I'm trying to kind of process all of that in the book.
I love that. I can't wait. It sounds
Thank you.
amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Alexis, thank you so much for chatting with me today. I loved it. I love getting to know more about the Lee and Alexis world.
Yes.
And thank you so, so much. Amigos de Lemas, muchas gracias por ver la entrevista. Pueden comprar el libro, el cualquier Gandhi que tengan cerca es por Editorial Trillas y muchas gracias. Nos vemos la próxima. Thank you.